I want to dedicate this video to Al Prophet and Seth Ferrante, two guys that have been incredibly supportive in my career, and they make amazing content, and I'm working with them. We're going to be producing some documentary films together. You can find Al Prophet at americandope.com. He also has a YouTube channel called Al Prophet. And Seth Ferrante, incredible filmmaker as well, also a great writer and journalist. He just recently did the documentary White Boy that's on the Stars Network about white boy Rick, 17-year-old who got a life sentence for selling crack, essentially got set up by the crooked Detroit police. And you can find Seth Ferrante, that's the name of his channel, also at guerrillaconvict.com. So thank you guys for all that you've done for me. This is my 5 years in federal prison, part 19. And where we left off in the last video, I had just gotten out to Oxford, a much calmer prison compared to Victimville. This is out in Wisconsin. It's out in the Midwest. And although it still has gangs, it doesn't have the racially charged politics of California. Now, people have commented and they've said, yeah, but the racial divide creates structure, creates order. I couldn't disagree more with that statement. I've been to prisons all throughout the country, and the ones that have the really super serio politics are the ones that are definitely the most violent. I would take a structureless prison over the heavy-handed political climate of California State Prison or the federal prisons that I've been that are located in California any day, compared to a place in the Midwest where it's essentially structureless, because it's every man for themselves, and it creates an environment where people are actually held accountable. They can't hide behind race. They can't hide behind the gang shit. It doesn't work like that out there. And this story is going to touch on that. So I had just gone to Oxford, and the Norteños had come up to me, and because I had befriended them, I only knew them a week, but they trusted me enough to tell me that it was about to crack off with the Southsiders. And as I had explained in the previous video, up until this point, they were unified. So they sat together at the same table. My theory on that is because there were all these gangs in the Midwest, like the Vice Lords, Gangster Disciples, Latin Kings, and the Southsiders and Norteños. I think it's just like the Crips and Bloods, how they form one union in California or in any prison they're at, and they essentially run as black. In this prison, I think they were together just for numbers. And what had happened is, you know, the MA runs it for the Southsiders, and Northern Familia runs it for the Norteños. And there had been some sort of truce, at least in the federal system. Now, people get confused all the time. They say, well, this is 2010. Norteños and Southsiders weren't cool in 2010 in California State Prison. That might be true, but federal prison has an entirely different set of politics. And what had happened is they said that they were cool to program together and that they could be unified like they were at Oxford. Something must have happened. I never found out what it was, but a kite or a message was sent to the Norteños saying to take off on the Southsiders. And the way that this prison was set up, I explained it in the last video. There was up the hill and there was also down the hill. And up the hill, there was a bunch of different units spread out, and down the hill was the same kind of structure. And it was literally up a hill and down a hill. And they were very spread out. So what the plan that the Norteños had was that after the 4 o'clock stand-up count, it was going to crack off in every unit. Now, at the time, just so you have an idea of what the numbers were, there were probably 20 Southsiders on the yard, and there were probably 10 Norteños. So there was about half the number of Norteños than there were Southsiders. But they had the advantage in this particular situation because they knew that it was going to happen, and the Southsiders were completely caught, blind struck, which is interesting. And I think this is one of the lingering paranoid issues that comes with most people that have PTSD from prison. One day, you're super good friends with somebody, you're eating chow, you're working out with them, and the next day they're stabbing you. And this is a perfect example of that. So these norteños had told me that this was going to go down. And I told my celly, I told Taco, I said, hey man, it's going to crack off tomorrow. He's like, when you say crack off, do you mean for fun? I was like, in what fucking prison setting would anything crack off for fun? He's like, he really was kind of like the Latino version of Steve Carell or something. And I could never tell if he was fucking serious or not. He really creeped me out. And the fact that he actually enjoyed women shitting on his face. That was a real thing. Like, I'm not making that up. I talked to one of my friends on the phone. He's like, did that really happen? I was like, yeah. He's like, did he really talk like that? Yes, except when I'm doing the impersonation, I don't have a gold grill. Just imagine with gold. Very creepy. So I told Taco that it was going to go down. So sure enough, you know, when you know that serious violence might happen in a jail or prison setting, or anywhere for that matter, when you have knowledge that it's going to go down before other people do, you get this like pit in your stomach and you get these butterflies, this anxiety, because anything can happen. I could have gotten pulled into that. We all could have gotten pulled into that. And I knew that the norteños had made knives. Now, at Victorville, everybody was strapped. That's just what kind of place it was. Oxford was totally different. When I got there, the first thing that I asked was, hey, where's all the drugs? Where's all the alcohol? And people looked at me like spooked out. And the reason being is there's so many rats at this prison. There's a very, very hush-hush underground community of people that did drugs there. They definitely were there, and I would find out later how much drugs were actually there. There was quite a bit. But, you know, not everybody was strapped with shanks. Definitely norteños, definitely Southsiders, definitely Latin Kings. If you're gang espoused that as part of the political requirements, you had to have a knife. So they had it, and it was the kind of place where the COs were on it. So they shook down cells a lot. It wasn't like Victorville where they were like, when you're at a rougher prison, guards seem to be more respectful. They don't want to go shake your cell down because inmates have been known to swing on the guards or stab the guards or kill the guards, which is what happened at USP Atwater in 2008, I believe. So they don't shake the cell down as much in Victorville, and you know, everybody there is pretty much strapped, and a lot of people there are doing life sentences. At Oxford, they're much more on it. So even these gangs that have knives, they have them put away in various places. They have them buried somewhere outside, or they have them they have ice machines in the feds. You know, the classic ice machines that you'd see in like a hotel, and that's a very common area for people to hide shanks. They open the top of the ice machine has like this little plastic black casing. You can open that, and a lot of people put knives in that, and every unit has an ice machine, and I know a lot of the norteños had knives hidden there. Remember, they were outnumbered. Southsiders had almost twice as many numbers. So the norteños were strapped, they were prepared. I know some of them made like big daggers out of wooden broom handles. They like snapped the broom handle in half, put some electrical tape so that there was like a grip on it, and they sharpened it so it was like some big glorified splinter, like some straight up Braveheart shit. So I'm telling Taco, and he's like, what time do you think it's gonna crack, man? And I'm like, supposedly right when the doors open, you know? That's the one time that they would come lock the doors, was during the stand-up count. Because remember, there's communal bathrooms at Oxford, so there's not toilets or sinks in your cell. If you have to take a piss in the middle of the night, you have to walk to the communal bathroom. You'll always see people kind of drunk with sleep, kind of just stumbling to the communal bathroom. But when there's a 4 o'clock stand-up count, they leave all the doors locked while they're doing the count. And it's like a security thing. You know, they need to... The reason they make you do a stand-up count at 4 o'clock is they want to see you standing, and they want to make sure that you're alive. and that's when they do their census and they do their head count. So with the communal bathroom situation, they have to kind of lock the doors because an inmate can figure out a way to, do the count, say like his friend's escaping or something, and he like switches cells really quick and he stands up and pretends that he's this person, and then goes back to his normal cell, and then the count just got thrown off and this person is 6 states away or whatever. So that's the reason they lock it. So they lock the doors for the 4 o'clock stand-up count, and we're just kind of sitting in there. Taco's like, oh man, there's gonna be a riot. I'm like, that's not like a cool thing, Taco. Like, people are gonna get hurt. Sure enough, when the doors crack, you hear a bunch of commotion. Now, I stayed in the cell with Taco. We both did. He's like, I want to see. I'm like, dude, stay. Don't get involved with it. And I guess what had happened is what they had planned. It went off in every unit simultaneously. So when this happens in a prison, they have what's called the deuces. It's a button on their walkie-talkie that they can hit, and it's like a mayday call. Like, you hit the walkie-talkie, and there's some sort of system that says where the button was hit. So you see guards just run in swarms in the direction that the button was hit. And it was really funny because at Oxford, you could look out your window, and you actually had a little like crank that you could use to open the window a little bit and close the window a little bit. There were still bars and there was like a screen right there, but you could open the window a little bit and you could look out, and there was actually a very nice view. This was the Wisconsin woods right out there, all the beautiful red brick buildings. It may sound silly, but compared to the desertscape of Victorville, this was actually a very picturesque place in comparison. So we're looking out the window. Taco's shorter than me. He's like 5'2". He's like standing on his tippy toes. He's like, oh my God, look. And we're seeing guards run to one building, because that's where the deuces were hit. They're running in one direction. Then all of a sudden you'll see them run in another direction. They got super confused, and that's why the Norteños executed this attack in this manner, because they wanted to create confusion. Instead of, doing it in the chow hall, where they probably weren't going to have as good of chance to beat them because they're outnumbered 10 to 20, they decided to do it this way because they already knew it was going to happen. They had these big mop handle daggers that they had made. They had shanks, whatever, and the Southsiders weren't expecting it. And if they did it in each building simultaneous like that, it was going to create the chaos, and they had an advantage. And that's exactly what happened. I didn't really see much go down. The only thing that we could really see from the cell was guards running in different directions. Then you'd see, a Southsider come out in his boxers and he's handcuffed. You see some people leaking blood. You saw some people going out on a gurney. People definitely got stabbed. It wasn't that kind of prison. It's a very mellow prison. That's the only major event that had ever gone down there. Well, with that kind of numbers. I'll get into in the later stories some individual stuff that went down that was pretty crazy. But as far as like a riot, what's also considered a melee in state prison, where it's multiple people engaging in combat like this, that was like the biggest event that had happened like that. So you're seeing people getting arrested, you're seeing people hurt, gurneys, like I said, and we went on lockdown again. And we had just gotten off a lockdown. I forget what the lockdown was for when I had gotten there, because remember, I'd gone in there and I was tripping out on it because I came from Victorville, and when you're on lockdown in Victorville, it's like real lockdown where you're stuck in the cell. I'd always be stuck with country, Hey there, little buddy. Do you think they're gonna let us off lockdown today? How the fuck should I know, country? What? I'm not a cop. I don't know. Yeah, that's what I thought, little buddy. And now I'm stuck with Taco. Hey, man, that was my first prison riot. I'm like, it's excellent, Taco. You should write it in your diary. Tell your family that you were part of an actual prison riot today. But, we weren't. We were just kind of sitting in the cell. So we went on lockdown, and now, and what had happened is they brought everybody to the hole. Just the epilogue of what happened with the Norteño Southsider riot at Oxford in 2010. what had happened is they took all the Norteños and they took all the Southsiders to the hole. Obviously, they separated them all, and the Southsiders were sailed up with Southsiders, Norteños were sailed up with Norteños, and administration, like, Norteños won. You know, a lot of the different incidences that had gone down individually were like 2 Norteños on 1 Southsider, and they just cornered them, and they had knives and the Southsiders didn't, and they just blindsided them like that, and they had won. So the Norteños definitely won the fight, even though they had about half the numbers as the Southsiders. And the administration made a decision to let the Norteños stay, and they were going to ship the Southsiders out. And I heard a bunch of different theories about that. Personally, what I think is that Norteños had less options. They couldn't go to as many places. Southsiders could go to much more yards than what Norteños can for whatever reason. And so they let them stay. So the Norteños went to the hole for a few months, whatever. And I'm getting adjusted to life at Oxford. And at this point, I hadn't started lifting weights yet, but I had planned on it. You know, I was doing more calisthenics. I was doing push-ups, pull-ups, dips, and you know, when I went in, I was obese from the methadone. I couldn't even do 1 pull-up. Like, people had to like hold me up, and I'd die. I felt like I was having a stroke every time I tried to do a pull-up. So I was just transitioning into fitness. And Oxford's actually a place that I got in really good shape, but it happened over a few years. It didn't happen right away. And I did move out of Taco Cell, thank God. Like, someone had helped me get out of it. And I moved in with this guy, Steve, the skinhead guy from Kansas City, Missouri. I think he was in a gang called Family Values. I don't know if any of you guys are from Missouri. I'm pretty sure that's the clique he was from. But he was a really cool guy. He's doing like, I want to say 20 years on a meth case. And I started just kind of being involved with the day-to-day program there. There were no drugs that I could get my hands on. I did find people that were getting Wellbutrin at the pill line. So I started my little contracts where I was snorting Wellbutrin every day. But as far as heroin, as far as weed, I would smell weed once in a while. But like I said, it was very, very hush-hush. And I spent my time playing poker for the most part. Now, in Victorville, we were playing Texas Hold'em. And at Oxford, the game of choice was Omaha. I didn't know how to play Omaha. You know, that's where you play with they were playing with either 4 cards or 5 cards, and you had to play 2 cards out of your hand. So we were playing Omaha a lot. And I didn't really understand that game. The odds are different. It's just a different game. And one of the first times that I sat down to play, saw a bunch of black guys playing, and I'd asked my cellie, Steve, at this point, I said, hey man, I like playing poker, do you think I can play with those black guys? He's like, I fucking hate you. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I fucking hate you for asking that fucking question. Can you play with black guys? Yeah, I don't give a shit, go ahead. But he really meant that. I mean, my dad sent me I remember my dad right when I got there sent me a birthday card. And not a birthday card, what was it? I don't know, maybe it was around Christmas time, some holiday. My dad sent me a card and it was like Barack Obama's face. And I put it up on my little cork board. You know, they give you these cork boards on the wall and you can put pictures on it. So I put this picture of Obama up. Every morning Steve would look at it and he'd just be like, fucking hate you. Fucking hate Obama, and I fucking hate you. And be like, are you serious? And he just like walk down the hall and like go to brush his teeth. He really hated that I had this picture of Obama up because he had like pictures of like Hitler doing, you know, saluting and, you know, shit like that. And I had a picture of Obama. But anyway, so I asked him permission because I didn't know how it worked. I'm like, can I play poker with another race? Can I gamble with them? I didn't know how it worked. He said that I could. So I went up to this poker game and I said, hey guys, what are you playing? And they're like, oh, we're doing an Omaha tournament and you gotta bring cash to the table to buy in. They had a laundry bag underneath the table full of commissary items. So I looked and there was like summer sausages, pouches of mackerel, pouches of tuna, white rice, brown rice, tortilla, you know, bags of tortilla wraps, and you know, good stuff. And I hadn't gotten my property transferred. I think it took me about 6 weeks to get it transferred. And the feds, they mail you your property, which is ridiculous. In state prison, when you're going from like when I went from Wasco to Centinela, you bring all your property with you on the bus. They just put it underneath the bus and you get it that day. And the feds, they ship it. Sometimes it takes 3 weeks, a month, six weeks, whatever. So I didn't have I didn't have my property yet. And I think I had gone to commissary once, and I had just gotten, you know, something you should always do in prison, unless you're a total scumbag, which I'm not saying that I'm not a total scumbag, and I definitely was more of a scumbag back then. But one principle that I did adhere by is when you go to commissary, you should always get your hygiene first. And a lot of people won't do that. Like, you know, you'll see some like overweight guy. He just gets to prison, and instead of going to get his deodorant, his Irish Spring, his washcloth, toothpaste, etc., he goes and spends like $14 worth of honey buns, comes back, and that's it. And then he just smells like shit the rest of the time. There's always someone like that in prison. But I would always get, you know, my parents sent me some money, and I got stacked up with hygiene commissary stuff. So I went and I looked in my locker. I had some food too. You know, I got hygiene and then I got food because there's limits of how much you can spend each week, depending on what prison you're at. I think at Oxford you could spend $70 a week, I want to say. Maybe more. I don't remember. But so therefore, because there's a limit, the first time you go to store, you're spending most of your money on hygiene stuff and you don't have a lot of food. And I wanted to gamble with these black guys, and I went and looked to see what I had, and like I had deodorant that was unopened. I had a few things, but it was stuff that I wanted to keep. I always like to have backup hygiene. But I had a box of Tide laundry detergent. Now, some prisons, very rarely, like when I was at Lompoc, the place that I was at with Big Meech, they didn't have washer machines. Victorville did, and Oxford did as well. So you could buy Tide off the commissary, you know, like the little cardboard box of Tide. And I had an extra one of those. I was like, okay, cool. I had gotten 2 of those. I think it was like $5.70 for a little box of Tide detergent. So I went up to these black guys and I said, how much is the buy-in? They're like, it's $5, Omaha tournament, winner take all. Give us the detergent. We'll put in this little laundry bag full of commissary stuff. And if you win, you get all the food or all the commissary stuff. I said, cool. So I sat down and I started playing this Omaha tournament. And I won. You know, I'm a pretty good poker player. And even though I wasn't very good at Omaha, you have so many different outs and so many different options. Sometimes you can just go on a lucky streak. And that's what happened. I got very lucky and I won. And I was playing with like 5 or 6 black guys. They were really pissed that I won. I was like, yeah, I won. And they're just like, shut up. No, they didn't say that. But I'm like, can I get my commissary? And they're like, oh, no. We pay on store day. I was like, what do you mean? There's a bag full of shit. I thought it was winner take all. They're like, nah, man, you give us a list and then you can get whatever you want. Now, I'm used to Victorville, right? If somebody gives you your word at a place like Victorville, like, especially with gambling, like, okay, if you play like a sports ticket, you know, you play sports spreads and you win, you know, at a place like Victorville, you're going to get paid. Because if you don't get paid, people stab you over shit like that. So that's the only time I was used to doing. Victorville was the only prison I'd ever been to up until this point. This was my second yard. And so I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, I need some stuff anyway. So I just give you a list. That's what you do when you owe somebody money in federal prison or in state prison as well. You write like a little laundry list. Like you'll say, you know, 1 mackerel, $1.40. 2 white rices, and the white rice will be like 90 cents a piece. So it'll say 180. And you add it up. And I think they owed me like $25 or something. So I'd give them a list like this and they'd give me whatever I wanted, in theory. So you always see people the day before store day. Like, you know, I think store day there was like on a Tuesday morning or something. So you always see everybody in prison running around giving each other lists, you know, giving somebody a list, or you're leaving it on somebody's bunk or whatever. And I wrote my list. I think it was $25. That's what I'm pretty sure it was $25. And I give this guy that was like running the table or whatever my $25 list. He's like, yeah, I got you, man. And this guy was like a chubby guy, like the same height as me, long dreadlocks. He was a Vice Lord. Vice Lord's like a Midwest gang, I guess. And he's like, I got you, man. I got you. I was like, all right, cool. So store comes, and, you know, when I ever owe money to people on store day, unless I'm like strung out and pulling some grimy shit, I always walk around and just, like, if I owe a whole laundry bag full of stuff, I always go pay everybody. And it's very common. You see people giving people entire bags full of stuff. Sometimes people put it on the bunks. And I waited, and I never got paid by this guy. So I go up to him, and I'm like, hey, man, like, what's up with the commissary you owe me? He's like, oh, damn, I didn't get paid that shit. Sorry, G. Next week, dog. I'm like, next week, dog? Like, bro, it doesn't work like that. You gave me your word that you were... He's like, yeah, I know, but, like, people owe me and shit. It ain't me, though. It ain't me. I'm like, ugh. All right, that's cool. You know? And, like, I'm being empathetic because how many times have I owed somebody and said, like, oh, man, the money didn't hit, and then people have, like, had patience with me and given me an opportunity to come right. So I wasn't going to be hypocritical. I'm like, okay, all the times that people let me slide, I'll do that for this guy this one time. So I wait an entire another week, and I don't play any poker with this particular... I'm playing poker every day, but not with this particular group of people. They're like all Vice Lords, all the same gang, and I'm pretty sure that if like a white guy sits down at the table, that they have something worked out where like they... Even if I win, they like have made some pact not to pay me. That's just the vibe I got from these guys, you know? So I wait another week. So I give the guy another list. Store day comes and he tries, oh man, my baby mama was supposed to put my money on my book, you know what I mean? And like, it didn't hit. And I'm just like, no. Fuck that. Let's go to your cell right now. He's like, all right. They always do that. Anytime you call somebody, all right, oh yeah, all right, yeah. And then you get in the cell and Jamie like, dude, can I suck your dick? Please, can I suck your dick? And then like, that'll be payment. That's how Jamie Lake was. So I go into the cell with this guy. And he's like, look, G. Like, he tried to act like he was, he wanted a fight when we were out in like the common area. As soon as we get in the cell, look, G, look, bro, I swear to God, bro, on my kids, dog, on the dead homies, dog. Next week, dog. Fuck that. Open your locker. Now, the locker has a combination lock that you can buy from store. In his locker had a combination lock on it. And he's like, dude, I don't even know the code, dog. I'm like, how do you not know the code to your own locker? And so he's like, and he's like playing with it, and he's kind of like, you know, fiddling with the lock, and I just crack him, dope fiend him. And there's a chair in the cell, and when I hit him, he falls on the chair and kind of just like sits down. And I like have my hands up, and I was like, open your fucking locker. He's like trembling, doesn't fight back. This is a gang member, if that tells you anything. This guy's a Vice Lord. He didn't do anything. Like, and I've met a lot of Vice Lords that are actually hard and with it. This guy just wasn't one of them. He was a pussy, you know? And he's like trembling, opening the locker. He's like, okay. He opens it. His entire locker is full to the brim with commissary stuff. Probably like $400 worth of stuff. And I'm like, give me one of your laundry bags. He's like, all right, bro. All right, just don't hit me again. I'm like, I'm not going to hit you. Jesus Christ, dude. I'm like a little guy. So I take all the stuff out of his locker. All of it. Every single thing except for a Tide. The Tide that he had burned me for the first time we played poker. And just as like an extra fuck you to him, I left the Tide. I even like, you know, tilted it to an angle so that it was like, you know, it was like being showcased a little more in his locker. And I took it and I slung the laundry bag over my shoulder and I just walked out. And I was like, dude, you're a joke. Seriously. And if I tell your little clique you're in that a little white boy just beat you up and punked you for all of your shit, they're probably going to beat you up too. And I didn't tell anyone about it, you know? And I think that that was right around the time that I started realizing that prison was changing me. Because I would never act like that before. I was never a violent guy. I never would dope fiend somebody like that. If I did get in fights when I was younger, it was like for attention. It was never like over principle, reputation, stuff that really doesn't matter. And I you know, I like went in my cell and I did tell my cellie Steve about it. He's like, yeah, fuck yeah, I still hate you. But, you know, that's like when I started noticing that I really changed, that my temper was becoming an issue. And this is stuff that has stuck with me to this day. Prison changed me. You know, I went in there a nonviolent drug offender, and I definitely was calloused, hardened, jaded, with violent tendencies as the years went on. And we're only like a year and a half into it. It got much, much, much worse as time went on. And we will get into that in my 5 years in federal prison, part 20. I appreciate all of you. Like, comment, subscribe. What do you think I'm going to say? Palabra.